guys. 3 nights in a row. After a long day's work, I am tired. But we are doing this. This is actually pretty enjoying for me. So I'm glad you guys are enjoying. I'm glad you guys are joining me. So tonight I'm going to be talking about LLCs, corporations, the difference between the two, and maybe some other entities if you guys have questions about them. But I kind of wanted to give you a little overview. There's a lot of information. Thank you. Yes, tired, but I had to get myself together. There's a lot of information out there, but somehow it's still confusing because it's just like it's coming at you from every which way. So I get a lot of questions in this area, so that's why I'm kind of talking about it, highlighting it for you guys. My usual disclaimer that I am an attorney. My practice is out of New York. I'm licensed in the state of New York and New Jersey. Parts of my practice is national, such as trademarks and formations. However, just because I'm an attorney doesn't mean that I'm your attorney unless you hire me. So I do need to let you know that in case you're confused about that. And what else? I do work with a team. My business is focused on asset protection. So we help in the areas of trademarks, which we did the first day, helping you protect your brand and allowing you to have, make that an income stream for you and grow your business. We're also work with trust and estates. We use trust and estates tools to help our clients protect their assets, and we also help them plan for tomorrow. And we also deal with a lot of small businesses. So we do business formation, we do structuring, and contracts. And so that's what this is. Somebody put disclosure. Did you mean to put my disclaimer, or are you asking about disclosures? Either way, we could talk about that as I get through it. But I did say my disclaimer in case he just came in. Okay, so now one of the things, I guess the most common question that I get is, what type of business should I form for my business or my venture that I'm in? A lot of people, they may hear of one particular type of venture, like LLCs are popular, but doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's right for you. So I like to go through a series of questions that you should ask yourself if you are interested in, forming your business or securing a business, but you're kind of just thinking about it and you're not sure how to go about doing that. So one of the questions that I think you should ask yourself is, what is your risk tolerance, right? So risk tolerance is really important when it comes to you forming a business, because I think I might have mentioned this earlier this week, but when you are starting a business but you're not sure that you want this to be a business, right? If you're not sure that you want this to be like a formal business, a lot of people, they'll start just like creating a product and putting it out there because it's like a passion project, or you might be somebody who makes delicious treats and you just start, providing that for people, and you're not sure if you're actually going to make this a business. So one of the things you want to ask yourself is, what's your risk tolerance? So if the thing that you're doing is likely to get somebody sick or somebody injured, then you want to think about forming a business. Why? Because now you are at risk for your personal assets to be affected. So for instance, if you're somebody who does training, exercise training, things of that nature, and somebody's following you, they can get injured, and you don't want them to now sue you. If they decide to sue you, they'll sue your company, and your company will hopefully protect you from that rather than suing you directly. If you're somebody who like creates edible items or skincare, but it can actually, somebody could have an allergic reaction, or they could, get sick from something that you're using, then you want to, think about having a business entity to protect you and prevent you from your own personal assets getting affected. So I'll get into like the different types of entities and how they protect you, which ones protect you and which ones don't protect you that much. But I'm going to go through these questions to ask yourself first, so that you know what the kind of thought process is that you need to go to. And then you want to think about, secondly, you want to think about your business goals. So now, am I building this business? Is it just a side hustle that I'm doing to fund another goal of mine? Am I just doing this as a something for fun right now? or am I doing something? Am I doing this as something that I want to build into an actual business? Then you might want to think about actually forming. If you're doing it as a side hustle and you're not sure about it, I say you don't necessarily have to form right away if the risk is not high. Then you can kind of wait it out and see what it becomes. A lot of people nowadays are thinking about, because of the whole tech boom and how apps are kind of like making millionaires into 25-year-olds. So a lot of people are thinking about building apps or doing technology. And if you're doing something like that, whether you're looking to build it to just have it, or you're looking to build it to, go public, sell the company or whatever, what have you, make it build wealth for you, then you probably want to think about something like a corporation, because that's the type of entity that will allow you to sell that business or grow that business or get the type of funding that you're looking for. So that's your second question. What are my business goals for this venture that I'm doing? So it's going to take a little bit of planning on your side. You're going to kind of want to sit down and think about what your goals are for the business. And then another type of business that I know a lot of people are doing nowadays is to protect assets. So you may be thinking about starting a business to invest in stocks, because that may be a more favorable way to invest in stocks. You may be thinking about just buying real estate, and you want to have a business entity to protect your real estate. So that's important, because it's going to determine what type of, if you guys have questions, you could put them in. And when I, get to questions, I'll just kind of scroll back. If I catch it as I'm going along, I'll say it. So don't worry, I'm not ignoring you. So what did I say? Okay, so asset protection, yeah. If you're looking to protect real estate, or you're looking to protect yourself in investing, it's going to depend on what type of investment you're doing, but that may be a reason to go with one particular type of business than another, because it will allow you to get taxed the most attractive way for you, to make you keep more money in your pocket rather than giving it to the government, right? Which we don't want to do. We talked about that too. And then so based upon all those questions that you're answering, your fourth question is going to be, how is my income going to be coming in? So is this going to be a business where you are doing is this going to be a business where your money is coming in from you exchanging time for money? Or is it going to be a business where you create a thing and you kind of just sell it over and over and over? Somebody asked, do I deal with the trucking industry? It depends on what it is. If it's like a contract or something like that, we can discuss it. If it's a formation, most likely, but it kind of depends on what you're looking to do. Right. Okay. So those were the four questions that I really want you to ask yourself. Am I worried about my risk? Is the risk high in this business that I'm trying to do? Am I worried about, what are my business goals? How long am I trying to do this thing for? What's the end goal with it? Then you want to ask yourself, is this really just about asset protection, or is it something else? What's going to really be the thing that pushes you to one business or another? Then you want to ask yourself, how's my income coming in? Am I exchanging time for money, or is it just something that is going to just be passive income, just flowing in, which is what we all want, right? All right, so now we're going to get into the different types of businesses and why one may be more attractive than the other. So when I spoke about in the beginning how if you're just doing a business as a side hustle and you're not sure you want to do it long term, or if you're not really worried about the risk that's involved, being a sole proprietor is okay, right? And that's the only time that I think it's okay is when you, again, this information is information only. I'm not giving you legal advice, but just so you know. So if you're just doing it as I'm just doing this for fun, it's just a side hustle, or I don't know how long I'm going to be doing this, we're just trying it out, sole proprietorship is okay as long as the risk is not high. And so what is that? Sole proprietorship is basically just you. So if you think of it as me, myself, and I, like it's just you're operating under your name maybe. You can also get a DBA to do business under a different name other than your own name. So like instead of me being Sabine Franco's Cakes, I could just do, actually that wasn't a good example. Instead of just being Sabine Franco as the name of the business, I could be Sabine Franco Cakes or SFK Cakes, whatever. I could do a DBA, even being a sole proprietor, right? So that means you don't have a business entity, you haven't formed a thing that's different, that's outside of yourself, but you're just doing business under your name. So you can do that. That is the riskiest because it doesn't provide you anything separate from you. It doesn't provide you anything that protects you from the public. So if Sabine Franco gets sued, then I get sued, right? It doesn't protect me from anything that's going on with the business. So that is what sole proprietor is about. If you guys are confused about that, please ask any questions. So that's just you doing business under your name, basically. Now, if another type of business that you might have heard of is a partnership. A lot of people ask me sometimes, they have partners that they're working with, and they say, I need a partnership agreement, for this partner. And it may or may not be a partnership agreement if you're not in an actual partnership, right? So a partnership is actually a type of, it's not a business entity. So like an entity is something that lives separate and apart from you, that kind of holds and contains your business. But it is a way of doing business, right? A partnership. And what really defines a partnership is the partnership agreement. So it's like you have a contract with your friend to do business together, or someone who you've met, and you guys decide to start a venture together, and you create an agreement, which is a contract that says, this is how we're going to run the company, this is how the money's going to flow, this is how much you own, this is how much I own. That's a partnership. The risk with partnership is you're responsible for your partners, what they do wrong, and what they do right and what they do wrong. So there's no protection between you and your partner. So it's called joint and several liability. So that means if your partner steals money from somebody and runs off with their funds, you can be just as responsible personally for those funds. So I don't typically like partnerships between individuals. So like if you have a company, like say you have your own LLC and your partner has their own LLC, and then you do a partnership together, that's cool because you each have your own liability protection. You each are protected by your individual businesses. And so it doesn't matter what happens. If your partner does something wrong, your business is still protecting you personally. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. So aside from a partnership, now we're getting into like what's an actual business entity. So LLCs, which you're probably familiar with the name, it's a limited liability company. And what LLCs do, thank you for the thumbs up. What LLCs do is that it provides you sort of like a shield. And so it protects you from any liens, any judgments, anything that can come against your business. It protects you personally. So for instance, say you have a business and you own real estate within that business. Now something happens at the property, you get sued. Your insurance is not enough to cover it. And so now say it's $1 million, the property is only worth 700,000, whatever it is. And your insurance doesn't cover more than that. Now they can look to go after you personally. If you have an LLC, they cannot go past that company in order to get to you. Okay, so it blocks them from being able to get to you as long as you're running the company properly, which we're going to talk about. So that's why an LLC is attractive, because it has that liability protection. And any type of business, and it actually goes both ways. It gives you inside protection and outside protection. So what does that mean? God forbid you get into an accident and it's your fault. You harm somebody or somebody gets hurt. You get sued personally. Now they will not be able to penetrate the company to get the assets within the company, and they can't take your company ownership. They can't take your interest in the company. So it gives you that protection. It's super attractive for that reason. And there are some reasons why you would pick an LLC over other companies, which we'll talk about as well. And then let me just think of some other things why it's attractive. There's also something that's called charging order protection. So what that means is if you get sued, like I talked about in the last example, they will not be able to take your ownership in the LLC because the courts will not allow them to take your LLC ownership. So that means if you had property in that LLC, that's great because they cannot actually take that property because they can't penetrate the business. What they could do is if you owe money and the property gets sold or some money has to be paid out from the company, that's the only time that they can get that company when it comes out of the company. That's the only time they could get that money when it comes out of the company to you. Somebody said, can an LLC be owned by more than one person? Absolutely. There, it's done every day. Partners, either one person, multiple people, several people, groups of people can own LLCs. You're not limited to how many owners there are, except if it's an s-corp. With an s-corp, you can only have up to 100 owners. But I mean, that's usually sufficient for most people. You could definitely have more than one owner of an LLC. And I was going to say something with regards to that. But you would have an operating agreement within to basically govern and say what that LLC can and cannot do, and the ownership interests of each person and how the company is going to be run and what each member can basically expect to happen within that company. Okay, so that's your LLC. Your corporation is really going to be for companies that are looking to grow into large entities. So what I talked about, your tech company, that's the kind of company you're looking at to be a corporation. Your larger companies that plan on going public, it could be, there's tons of corporations, right? Coca-Cola's a corporation, Walmart's a corporation, almost anything you could think of. But most of the companies that are corporations are usually larger companies, unless there's a tax reason why you should be an actual corporation. But typically you want to think about larger entities doing larger deals that are going to be corporations because they get more tax benefits if they are a corporation, if they're doing certain types of business dealings. All right. So a good segue into that is how do you know which one to choose, right? How do you know if you should choose an LLC? How do you know if you should choose a corp or an s-corp? So I kind of talked a little bit about why you would choose a sole proprietorship and what instances. So for the other ones, if you have a good way to think about this is if you have a business where you're getting passive income, right? So you have book sales, you have a product, you have rental property that you're getting rental income from. Those type of businesses are better off as LLCs because of the fact that the way that you're getting taxed, right? So there's no income tax in a sense. There's capital gains tax because of the way that the money is coming in. And the capital gains tax is a lower rate than income tax. So it gets a little technical, but that's the reason why. So I give you that little trick. If it's passive income, you want to likely be thinking about doing an LLC. If it's active income, where you're exchanging time for money, maybe you're a professional like a realtor, or you're somebody who is maybe you have like a professional license like a lawyer or a psychiatrist or something like that, or you're just somebody, maybe you're a nail tech or you're a hairdresser where you're exchanging time for money, you're going to be taxed as that money that comes in is going to be taxed as income tax, and you'll be better off doing an s-corp. Now, I didn't talk about s-corps. S-corps is not actually a business entity. However, it is a way that the government taxes you, right? So you will get taxed at a lower rate if you have active income coming in, if you choose an s-corp. Now you could be a corporation taxed as an s-corp, or you could be an LLC taxed as an s-corp. Both ways. I know that sounds kind of confusing, but someone said, Yolanda, can a personal property be converted to an LLC? I think you're talking about real estate. So if that's correct, yes. What you can do is transfer your property to your LLC by doing a deed transfer. That's how it's done. I get that question all the time, that people don't really understand the logistics of how do I get my property into my LLC, or how do I turn my property into an LLC? So you're not turning it into an LLC, but you're transferring it to your LLC so that your LLC now owns it and that it's now protected, from any liens or judgments and things like that. What type of, truly amazing, hey, what type of entity should I form for a skincare line or a supermarket chain? So a skincare line, you are going to be selling a product. So you might want to be, so it's going to be passive. You're going to create the product, and then it's just going to be continuously being sold, like produced and sold. So it's more of a passive type of income, and so because of that, an LLC will be more attractive for you. And when I do say this stuff generally, because sometimes there may be some details that makes that not the right answer, you know what I mean? So just generally, I'm giving you guys a way to kind of figure out what to do with the type of entities that you're looking to form. Okay, so what I really wanted to talk about was how to run your business properly, because it's easy to find out what type of business to have, but what about how to run it properly, right? So one of the things, there are things that you need to do to make sure that you keep that liability protection. So if you have an LLC, you have a corporation or s-corp, you want to make sure that you are actually operating in the right way so that you can keep that liability protection, so that you protect your assets and you protect the business assets as best as possible. So one of the things that and what it's called is to avoid piercing the corporate veil. And what that means is, if you're not running the business properly, you're not keeping the right formalities, basically you're not doing the things in order to show that your business is separate and apart from yourself. If you're not doing those things, what could happen is, if you do have a lawsuit, or if you do have a claim, the courts could then come in and say, because the public couldn't tell the difference between you and your company, now we're going to pierce the company to get to you, and vice versa. Sorry for this chime. Let me turn that off. So they could pierce the company to get to you. So we want to avoid that. So you should know that it's not a blanket liability protection. You have to do some things to make sure that you are running the business properly. So one of the things is that you need to have a separate account for your business. You can't run your business through your own personal bank account, right? And you can't be sort of reckless in a sense with having money in your account and having money in your business account and paying stuff for your personal self from your business account and vice versa, right? I mean, you could pay for stuff from your business from your personal account, but you can't do it the other way around. The right way to do it is to, whatever monies that come in for the business should be payable to the business in the business's name. So if you provide a service, it should be paid to the business. If you're entering into a contract, it should be with the business, not you. You know, we don't want to get that confused. So you want to have your bank accounts separate, and everything that's coming into the company should be paid into the business name, and then if you want to pay yourself, then you transfer it to your own account, or you write yourself a check, or however you transfer the money. As long as that paper trail is kept, now you're showing that I'm separate from the business. I'm not doing stuff for people under my business, but then they're paying me directly. That's not the way to do it. So make sure that you are, as much as you can, especially with like your Cash Apps and your Zelle accounts, make sure that they're going to your business, because now we're just getting money thrown at us from everywhere. Yay. But you want to make sure that you're funneling it the way that it should be, right? So another thing to keep in mind, I know a lot of small business owners, when you're first starting up, you may be waiting for that money to come in, but you do need to make sure that the business has money in its account. You cannot use every red cent that comes into the business and leave the business dry, because then it's going to look like you're just using the business as a front, right? A lot of, like, the courts they're not quick to pierce the corporate veil because you don't have money in the business, but it is a factor that could be added into other things to say, okay, this business doesn't even have any funds, it can't even pay its own bills, so you don't want to do that. So figure out what your cushion is to cover your monthly expenses for your business, and to leave a little bit of cushion for growth and anything else that you want to do, like marketing. Try to leave a cushion in there so that the business always has some funding, okay? And you should know that those lawsuits to pierce the corporate veil, to get through the company, to get to individuals, they're usually like 50% successful, which is not a super high success rate, but it's successful enough that you should know. And the people who probably are most at risk are, people that look like us. So we need to know that it's not enough to just have your LLC. You also need to run the business properly in order to, keep that protection going. Another thing that I think a lot of business owners don't do is keep records. So to keep your minutes for the company, it's called minutes. So basically, if you have a meeting and you make a decision for the business, you have a record of that. You've, just, it could be, in a note document that you have a record of all the decisions that you're making. I'm not saying, things like, should we pick this type of paper versus this type of paper, or with, if you're designing something, should we go with this color versus this color? Not those type of things, but like fundamental things. Like if you're hiring a key person, if you're, letting go a key person and you're letting someone, you're changing management type of thing. Those major decisions, if the business is going to go in a new direction, you want to kind of write those things down so you have them. Like formally, attorneys will do it as a resolution, will do something formal, but say you don't, as you're starting off, you don't have the funds to have an attorney on retainer or whatever the case is, you can just do it, yourself. At least keep your record so that you have something and show the effort. Like the courts are likely to say, well, this person at least tried, even though they didn't, have maybe the funds or the resources to do it, legally with an attorney, but they tried. They have some sort of record for what they've done in the business. Okay. An operating agreement. So the other thing that you want to make sure you have is either, if you have an LLC, you want an operating agreement. If you have a corporation, you want bylaws. And these documents are really important because essentially how the law is written, if you don't have these documents, you really have no way of saying or communicating how your company is run. So under the LLC laws, under the corporation laws for your particular state, it talks about having an operating agreement and having bylaws to say, what are the rules for the company? How do we hire people? How do we add members or owners? How do we fire people? What happens if one of our members or our owners pass away? What happens if somebody wants out of the business? All those questions are answered in those documents. There are some states that don't require it, but you should still have it regardless, especially if it's not just you. If your particular state doesn't require you having an operating agreement or bylaws, if it's not just you, you definitely still want to have something in place. And another reason it's good is because if you are, if you're operating by yourself and something were to happen to you, how does anybody know how to help you? How does anybody know how to keep the business going or make a change in something or, kind of keep it afloat while you are recovering or whatever the case is? So it's also good to have that because you sort of have a pre-plan in place as to how this business is actually run. Another key thing that you should know that's not a legal thing, but it's something good to have, is to have like an operating manual for your company, because now you have how all of the processes are done for your company. Like, how do we bring a new client on? How do we take a client from A to B to C to D, or, whatever it is. You can have sort of like a manual in place, just like you get a manual for anything that you buy, a manual in place on how this business runs. And when you're starting out, that's the best time to do it because nothing is figured out yet. So you have the time and the energy to, as you go along and figure things out, you can put it in, you can write it down, put it in place so that people know. And, as you bring people onto the business, you have a blueprint for how this business is run. Okay, you want to also make sure that you have, you also want to make sure that you're signing contracts properly. So when you're signing a contract and you're a business owner, you're supposed to be signing the contract by, you're supposed to be signing the contract, it should say the business name, by yourself, and what your title is, and you're signing on behalf of the company. So I mentioned earlier about not entering into contracts under your own name if you're operating under your business, because now you're confusing things. Like, are you a business? Are you not a business? You know what I mean? You want to make sure that you're making that distinction, that you're always signing on behalf of the business. Everything you're doing is on behalf of the business. And it gets confusing when you're a solo or you're working by yourself, because you're like, it's really me, right? We know that. But legally, you want to have go through the motions. You're always signing on behalf of the business because the business is separate and apart from yourself. It has its own identity, its own EIN, which is like a social security number. It has, it could do everything that basically a human can do, like, contract, sell, anything basically that you could do. Your business in its own identity, it can do, right? So you want to make sure that you are acting on behalf of the business, like I said. And then make sure as well that you are not just using your company name without like the legal ending. So if it's an LLC, make sure on your legal papers, like if any contracts or agreements or anything like that, it says, your full legal name, how you're registered. It has the LLC part or the Inc. part or the Corp part. That's important because you want to make it clear. And the reason why usually the state would require you to have that in your name is because it makes the public know, okay, I'm dealing with a company, I'm dealing with an LLC, I'm dealing with an Inc. or Corp or whatever. So it's like it's putting the public on notice on what's required or what that relationship kind of looks like and what's the responsibilities. I need a drink of water. So yeah. Another thing that you want to do is make sure you have a registered agent in the state, that you keep that going. Most states require you to have the Secretary of State as your registered agent, but in case they don't, make sure you have one, or you have a local registered agent so that they can receive process. Process is basically just any legal paper. So the government wants to make sure that if you're sued, if any of your consumers or customers, clients have an issue with you, that they have a way to serve you. That's really all it is. Somebody to receive mail or to receive like any legal documents that come to you. That's what your registered agent is there to do, but you should always have one because that also helps you look like you're running the business in the way that it's supposed to be. Those are basically my tips for that. I'm open to answer any questions that you guys have. Let me see. This is a good time. Someone says, let me see, Tish says real estate investors should have an LLC or corp for flipping houses or renting. That's a great question, Tish. I get that all the time. And I'm just going to say, like, the short answer is that if you are renting property, since it's passive income, that you put in your renter and you're getting this income every single month, you're not really doing much, at that point. It's passive. So an LLC would be most attractive for you because of that. I also like LLCs more for real estate because it offers more flexibility in terms of ownership. It also offers flexibility if you want to move your properties from one entity to another, or maybe you want to transfer it for whatever reason. It's better to have it in an LLC, right? However, if you are somebody who's flipping, the way that your income is coming in, if you're flipping as a career, like say for instance you do 5 flips a year or 6 flips a year or whatever, they're not going to look at that as passive income. They're going to look at it as active income. And so that means that you're going to need to be most likely in an s-corp. So remember I said you could do an s-corp in a corp, or you could also have an LLC tax as an s-corp. So in that situation, if you're flipping, I would say it's safe to do an LLC, but tax as an s-corp, so that you can get the most favorable tax advantage with that. So that's the answer. Can you have one entity, becoming more, can you have one entity name with multiple other names? I'm trying to figure out what you're asking. So if you are asking, can you have, say for instance, your business name is one thing, but you have like other products or ventures that you want to do under the same business and you want to use a different name, you can do that. That would be, you could have a DBA for the other names, basically, for the other, ventures that you want to do. However, I would say that it's safer to keep them in separate businesses unless they're so closely related that it doesn't make any sense. Like, they complement each other, or they're part of like the same product line, or they're part of the same brand type of thing. Then you may not even need a DBA for that. So if I'm not answering it correctly, then just clarify what you mean. Truly amazing. When should you open a business banking account? That's a good question. So when you should open your business banking account pretty much as soon as you form. That way you're ready. If you get any monies in, you don't have to now, put them in your account temporarily and then transfer it later, and then your paper trail is all screwed up. Typically, you can find banks that will give you a free account, or if you talk to the banker at your bank, they do have the ability to give free business accounts, just so you know. So some of them, they don't like to give them out. They want to kind of keep them for certain types of clients, but you can ask. You can ask, see where you can get a free business account. Even if you can't, try to open it as early as possible, at least before you know that you're going to start getting any income in, or you're going to start selling products and things of that nature, or services. How do you do a consultation with me? Wonderful. I have a link in my bio that says, book a consultation, and you'd be able to fill out all the information, pick a time that's good for you and for me, and then we'll get talking. All right. Can you use your Miss Noah? Can you use your virtual address as the registered agent address of your personal address? Yes, you can. You can do that, and we do that sometimes. You can use your personal address as a registered agent address, but just make sure that if the state requires you to have a Secretary of State. So what happens is you either have the Secretary of State as your registered agent, and then they want to have an address to be able to forward that information to. So you could use your personal address, but just know that it'll be public. So if you want everybody to know your personal address, then you'll be able to, then they'll basically have access to that information. So I usually say get yourself a, a P.O. box or something, or virtual address is a good alternative. Do you know, expect greatness? Do you know I think you mean price of switching a personal home to an LLC? Oh, it depends on where the property is located and what the county filing fees are. So if you want more information on that specifically, just send me a DM, and we will answer that. Truly Amazing says, and how do you? So I think you're asking, how do you open a business account? And so you're basically gonna go to the bank with your corporate document. So you're gonna need your articles, or the document that says that you formed your business, or it could be your articles, or sometimes it's called certificate of incorporation or certificate of formation, depending on what your state calls it. You're going to need some states require a filing receipt, so it's like a receipt from the state saying that you filed. You're going to need a banking resolution, which basically says the company authorizes you to open up a bank account. Again, you're acting on behalf of the company, so you want to have that. And your EIN letter, which is your tax ID number. So typically, when you have all of those, you could go ahead and open up your bank account. We provide our clients with a corporate kit, so it gives you, all of those documents, everything that you basically need to go to the bank and open up your account. Thank you for that. Mr. Royalty, do you need any type of license for a cleaning business once you have your EIN? It kind of depends on where your company is located. Many businesses don't need a specific license. A cleaning business, I don't believe so, but it's gonna depend. It does depend on where you're located, and we could talk about that offline too. Expect greatness says, yeah, process. Okay, I think I answered that. Let me see. Do you know the process of switching? Oh, yeah. Okay. Do I know the process of switching a home to LLC? Yes. It's the deed transfer. I think somebody asked that. So you're gonna transfer your deed by. You'll be executing, or you'll have either an attorney like myself, or depending on the state where you are, there may be other services that can provide this, that drafts a new deed for you. The deed is going to go from yourself to your business entity, and now once it's recorded, everyone's on notice that your company now owns the business. Once you sign it and have it notarized, the transfer is actually as good as done, but you always want to have your deed recorded. Most states have some sort of requirement that whoever records first is the actual owner. So that's why you want to make sure that you record it. And once you record it, now the business owns the the property. Thanks. Bosch said DBAs. I'm not sure what you mean. Are you asking what is a DBA? Great question. DBAs. If you're asking what is a DBA, put it in. Like how McDonald's has several other business with different names. So McDonald's probably has different entities, right? So they have a different entity for each thing. So they have like their Ronald McDonald House as a corporation, then they have their McDonald's Corporation, then the other types of businesses that they do, they probably have different entities for them, and it may be under umbrella. So it may be McDonald's Inc., maybe the parent company, and then under the parent company, they have the different businesses that they are operating. That is a good strategy if you have, different businesses, and we could, kind of talk about that if you're asking something specific. But yes, so you can have a business with multiple different business names. Either you could do it as a DBA, which I don't recommend in every situation, or you can do it as as having separate entities and having them named differently. Heading to the bank in the morning. Good job. I'm proud of you, bro. Tish, how much to form an LLC and what does the fee cover? So I would say generally, unless there's a different situation for the particular location, but generally we charge $8.95 to form an LLC. That includes the filing fee, and what you get is the articles. You get the EIN number, you get minutes, so your first startup minutes that basically says, what decisions you made to start the company. Then you would get also banking resolution to help you go ahead and open up your bank account, and you get a standard operating agreement and bylaws as well. Or standard operating agreement or bylaws, depending on the type of business that you formed, and it comes in a corporate kit, so everything is kind of packaged together for you. And so I did just state the fees. That's what it is. Can you go over the process of signing contracts for a business? Yeah, so I did state it, but I'll repeat it just in case you missed it. So basically, when you're signing on behalf of your business, it should say the business name at the top. Then there should be the signature line. Next to the signature line, it should say by. And underneath that signature line, it should have your name and it should have your title. So if you are an owner of an LLC, it would say member. If you are an owner of a corporation, you could be the director or your actual position, like if you're the CEO or the president or something like that. Okay. If I'm a California resident with rental property in Michigan, which state would I need an LLC? Yes. So if you own property in California, you live in California, you have property in Michigan, it will be a good idea to have your LLC in Michigan, because California is an expensive state to have a business entity. The franchise taxes are very high. I think it's like $800 a year. But in any event, because the property is located in Michigan, you want to have access to the courts in Michigan. So you want to be able to, sue or, get a tenant out or whatever. Just you need to be legal in that state. If you're looking to get financing, you may have a problem getting financing if you are not, registered or legal in that state. Okay, so you should form in the state where your property is located. When opening a small business, at which point should you have an LLC? 3 months, 6 months in. So if you're gonna go back to that question, sorry, this was from Royalty 19. So you're gonna go back to that, what I said in the beginning, where you want to think about what your goals are for the company, how long you're going to have the company, what you're going to do with the company. If you know the risk is high, I say do it as soon as possible. If you know that you're going to be in it for the long term, then I say do it as possible, because what happens is you could be kind of cheating yourself. You could be paying more taxes than you need to on that income if you would have started sooner. Can you transfer a land title from one state into an LLC formed in another state? Yes, you can do that. That's not a problem. But I do, like I said, I would recommend that you do keep it in the entity in the state where it's located. I'm in Chicago. Can I hire you? Can you refer me to it? It depends what you need, Miss Noah. DM me and we can talk about that, okay? Daddy Daughter Construction, can you out of your home and LLC if you still have a mortgage on it? I think you're saying, can you put your home in an LLC if you still have a mortgage on it? Technically you can. However, your mortgage probably has something in there that's called a due on sale clause. And that basically states that you, if you transfer the property, that they can ask you to pay up, basically, to pay and satisfy your mortgage. So typically it's not policed, but it's a risk. So it's something that can happen if you still have a mortgage, you want to transfer it to an LLC. That could be a problem for you. So it's just managing the risk. Are you willing to take the risk to do that or not? Okay, so I answered that with the McDonald's situation. Thank you. What do you charge? Prem G. How can I get a trademark? I talked about trademarks on the first day and I saved the video. So if you want to refer back to that was on Tuesday. It is saved. I couldn't save last night's. It was a whole drama, but it'll be on my YouTube channel when I'll post it and let you guys know when it's up. But yeah, if you want to get a trademark or you want to talk about getting a trademark, you can reach out to me. So click the link in my bio for that. I'm running out of paper taking notes. Thank you guys. I'm glad this was informative. That was the goal. I want to give you guys the deets, the tea. So you know, yeah. So I think that's all the questions. I wanted to do 45 minutes, so we're right around there. I thank you guys so much for following, for watching, and I'm going to try to keep these lives up, not every day like I did this week. This was just like the icebreaker, but I'll try to have something for you every week. So thank you, appreciate you, and have a good night.